I've been running the Butcher's Canyon dungeon a lot recently, and I wanted to put together a guide so that you can avoid the most common mistakes and make it through this dungeon successfully. What's up everybody, my name is Whack and thank you for joining me for this video. Now all of the dungeons in Throne and Liberty are mechanical dungeons. There are certain mechanics that you need to learn and figure out in order to complete the dungeons, and this is my guide for Butcher's Canyon. One thing I recommend, no matter what dungeon you're doing, if it's the first time you're going through that dungeon, let your team know that it's your first time and that you do not know the mechanics. It's better to get kicked out of a group at the beginning of the dungeon than to spend a bunch of time going through that dungeon with a team that's not going to help and teach you. So let them know, hey, I've never done this dungeon, and they're either going to help you understand the dungeon or they're going to kick you out of the dungeon and you can queue up right away with another group that would be more helpful. You can also look at guides on YouTube to familiarize yourself with that dungeon's mechanics so that you can be a better teammate. The first common mistake that I see people make is people activating the elevator before everybody is actually on the elevator platform. Now you can recover from this, the elevator goes back down, but it just slows down the process of being able to start the dungeon with the full team. Another common mistake that I see is people not understanding what to do when they get turned into a sheep. First of all, if you are turned into a sheep, you want to hold on to it for as long as possible before passing it to another team member. In this clip right here, you can see the sheep pass multiple times. There's one sheep there, there's another sheep there, there's another sheep there. It passes 3 times in a matter of seconds, and then the person that has the sheep doesn't know how to pass it to another person. So each person in the team can only be the sheep one time before it's passed to another person. In this example, they should have actually come and passed the sheep to me instead of running back to the person that passed it to them. And being turned into a sheep doesn't have to be a death sentence. You can see we're fighting a shapeshifter. Once that shapeshifter dies, it actually leaves an area of effect on the ground that is like a pool of water. You simply run into that pool of water with the sheep form to complete that mechanic successfully. The other time that I see people struggle a lot is when they're fighting the shadowmancers. In order to do any damage to these shadowmancers, they actually have to be stunned at the exact same time. This can be very difficult if you're queuing up with groups that are not in voice chat together, because the people that are there to stun the orc shadowmancers have to do it at the exact same time, or you'll sit here just not doing damage eternally. Because of this mechanic alone, I've actually put a stun on my bar so that I can get in and stun that enemy should I need to. And anytime you see a shadowmancer tethered to another enemy in this dungeon, it will be a situation where you have to stun that shadowmancer in order to do damage to both it and the enemy that it's tethered to. Now that we make it to the boss arena, there's a couple of things that you want to pay attention to in this area. First of all, you can see lighter and darker rings on the arena floor. The darker rings are very dangerous. You want to stay off those darker rings, like right now, because if you step on them when they're lit up with the red, you will be stuck there, not able to move. When you're fighting the boss, there are 2 mechanics to keep in mind. The first mechanic is going to be when the shapeshifters spawn on the map. You should pick one spot that you're always going to take the sheep to. This is going to free one person that's stuck in the arena area. If you're stuck in that arena area when Duke Magna does his jump attack, you will die. There is no way to block that damage. It is an instant death. Now, in between the mechanical times for this dungeon, there's a couple of attacks that you need to watch out for. The first is this one, where you need to block. He's also going to send fireballs down from the sky to land in certain areas. You just want to get out of the way of those. The last and final one that you want to watch out for is when the area effect moves away from him and then comes back. You want to jump while that area of effect is moving away from him so that you can avoid the damage. If you see a purple area of effect, that means your tanks are not pulling aggro properly, and you need to make sure that you are within melee range doing that damage so that he doesn't start doing a lot of ranged attacks that are going to be unavoidable. The second mechanic that you're going to go through is when he pulls you into the center ring again, you need to look for the red lit totems and go and interact with those. That will free anyone that's stuck in the middle from being stuck there and relieve them of taking any of that damage. Now, both of these mechanics, the shapeshift mechanic and the totem mechanic, will have two locations that you can go to. When it's a shapeshift mechanic, I recommend taking everyone to one single location. However, when it's the totem mechanic, you need to go and interact with both totems. If both totems are not interacted with, whoever is stuck in the center arena is going to end up dying. Whatever you do, don't rush back in to start doing damage to him until after he's finished his jump attack, because that will instantly kill you no matter how much health or block you have at that point in time. And then this fight is pretty much just wash, rinse, repeat. It's going to go in the same order. So you need to kill the shadowmancer and take the cheap to it. Then you need to interact with the totems again. If your team starts to die off, understand that you cannot do these mechanics with less than 3 people. So if you get down to 2 people and you are in a situation where you're not doing enough damage to kill him off before the next mechanic, like this one here, comes along, then you just need to reset. Now, you don't have to die to reset. You can actually just run back up the bridge or to the edge of the map in order to reset that fight. Though I have had times where I have been in this fight and it's been just myself and the healer at the end of a mechanic, and we have been able to defeat him because he was low enough health to just stack the damage on him and not get to that next mechanical phase. Now, in each one of these mechanics, one person will get stuck in the middle, no matter what. I'm currently the one person that's stuck in the middle, and the team needs to get the 2 totems. Unfortunately, they didn't get it in time, and so by the time I'm actually able to move, I end up dead because I can't get out of that area of effect. And what happens when you're in there changes depending on what cycle the fight is in. So if it's a sheep cycle, whoever gets stuck in the middle actually turns into a sheep. They need to get as close to one of those red rings as possible to pass that sheep to another player. Then those players that are free need to pass that sheep to get it to the spot where the shapeshifter died. Couple other things to wrap this video up. One is the floor. As you're going through these mechanics, sometimes you'll see the floor like this where you only have one way out, and that is as difficult as this gets. I don't have any footage of it, but if at any point in time you fall off of one of these bridges for whatever reason and you can't get back up, you can teleport out of the dungeon and then click on the little feet icons that are next to the party names, and that'll let you back into the dungeon where they're at. So if you fall off, you can get stuck down there in this dungeon if you don't die when you fall down there. And the last thing I'll say is it's probably going to be pretty easy to know how difficult the boss fight is going to be if you pay attention to how your teammates handle the mechanics moving up to the boss fight. If they're struggling with the mechanics early on, it's likely that they're going to struggle with the mechanics in the boss fight. Additionally, you want to kind of pay attention to the amount of damage that your team is doing and how quickly they're able to actually clear out the base mobs in this area. If you have low damage, that means that the boss fight is just going to take longer and there'll be more opportunity for people to make mistakes during that fight. Lastly, in any dungeon, if you're not the healer and you find yourself not being healed by the healer, you should probably get closer to the tanks, as they're likely to be the ones that are receiving the most attention from the healer because they play a vital role in making sure the mechanics are the easiest they possibly can be in the fight. When the tanks fall short, the fight mechanics change, and you as a DPS or someone that is ranged are going to start taking a lot of damage. So if you're a ranged character and you're not getting love from the healer, just get close to your tanks and you'll start getting love just by being in their area. I'd like to thank all my YouTube members for your continued support. Y'all are absolute legends. Don't forget to whack the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content. And if you don't want to be out of whack, there's another video on the screen right now that you can click to support more of my content.